In this new help video, I'd like to look at our new indicator control panel, and in particular look at the difference between indicator defaults and templates, because there's a subtle difference you need to understand between the two of them. So to add an indicator to a chart is very easy. You go up to our indicators button on the top of the chart, and here's our new indicator panel where you've got a list of indicators available. If you wish to add a new indicator to a chart, you just select it, and then before you can change any of the values, you have to add it to the current indicators list for this particular chart. So for that, you just do the plus button. As you can see, the stochastics come down to the bottom here. To add it to a chart, you just do OK, and there you can see there's the stochastic. But maybe you want to change the stochastic values. So for this, you just can click on either the settings. You can see there's a little hyperlink in the indicator there, or you can go back to the main indicator section there. So either way, I'm going to click on this one. Now you can change the settings. So perhaps here you want to make the color of the green line a little bit thicker, and perhaps of the K line you perhaps say, well, actually I don't want that orange, I'd like that something a bit different, and also make that a bit thicker as well. You can now apply that to the chart, and as you can see, it's applied to the chart. So let's now have a look at the difference between indicator defaults and templates. Alright, I want to make a big definition here. Right, what is a default? A default value is the value of the indicator when you pull it up on a new chart. So for example here, you can see we actually changed the indicator values down here for something slightly different. So what I'm going to do now is remove this from the chart, click on the minus, and do OK, and you can see it's gone. Now when I go back and add it again, stochastic, and do OK, can you see the values are back to what they were to start with? So let's say you want to change these and make these the default for new indicators placed on a new chart. So let's do just change that to a different thickness. Now if I do OK, oops, sorry, what I should have done is gone back, and on the stochastic one I should have done set as default. So what that means is when you now pull that indicator up again, that will be the default value. So remember what we did is we changed the green line to a width of 2. I then did set as default. I'll show you what that means. So now if I remove that indicator from the chart and do OK, now I want to add it again, perhaps on a new chart. I'll go back and select stochastic, and I'll do OK here, or do plus. Now can you see when we came down to the D color, can you see the width is now at 2, which in other words, the properties that you've set for this new indicator and set as default are now the default values when it's pulled up on a new chart. In other words, you change the default values for adding a new indicator to a new chart. If you want to restore the defaults to our factory settings, you can just click on Restore Defaults. So what's the difference between that and a template? Well, an indicator default works on an individual indicator to be added to a new individual default, chart. A template is basically defining all the indicators you have on the current chart and using them as a template to be added to any new charts. Now the difference, and the subtle difference here is that the template takes the settings from the chart that you set the template from. In other words, if I use the template, because we have a default template set already at MTPredictor, that's what loads these different indicators on here. So this default template will take the settings from this particular chart. So say for example, you can see here we have our STF. So our STF color here is grey. Can you see that at the bottom there, grey for our mid color. So say I want to change that to black. Okay, so I'm not changing the default values. What I'm doing is I'm going to change whatever color you want, or whatever indicator setting you want. Here I'm doing it as black. I'm doing OK. See, I'm not setting as default, I'm just doing OK. That now sets that as black. Now what I want to do is I want to now set the default template to be the indicator values on this particular chart. So I'll do right mouse click, come down to templates, and then save as default. In other words, this is the default indicator settings that are used by default on a new chart. So I'm just going to do save as default. By the way, in the future we're hoping to be able to allow you to have different default indicators. So I'm templates. So I'm hoping that in the future, when you have different chart templates in here, you should be able to change the default one, but we haven't done that yet, so I'm hoping to add that in. Right, now we've set the default template. Let's see what happens when we add a new chart. Let's go to something different. Let's say, I don't know, the Euro GBP or something. Let's load it on a short-term chart. Let's do OK. And let's go to our STF. And as you can see, there's our STF color as black. So do you understand the difference here? In that if you want to add a or open a new chart with indicator values on that you've changed yourself, you should use a template and then do templates save as default. So the tip here is get the indicators on your current chart that you like. In other words, whatever indicators you like. Let's perhaps go back to adding our stochastic on as well. Perhaps let's just do that. Let's do a stochastic. Let's add that on. Let's change a few values here. Do you remember we had that? Now you can see there's the default value. That's the difference between that. The default values now come up as 2 there. So we'll do that OK. And that's now added to that particular chart. Now if I right mouse click, do template, save as default. Now let's look at the difference. So let's actually have a oops, sorry. Let's add the GBP Euro again on a 5-minute chart. Let's do OK. And now can you see what it's done? It's added all these indicators on with the settings we had on the previous chart, but added them on as a template. In other words, there's our stochastic with our slightly thicker line there. There's our STF with our different color there. So that's what I think most of you will want to do, is you'll want to define which indicators you want on new charts, and you'll want to define their values. So what I suggest you do is set them up on one chart like this, set all the colors as you want, then right mouse click, do template, and then save as default. If you do that, then when you open a new chart, you'll have the indicators as you wish with your colors and settings appear on a new chart. So hopefully this video has helped and shown you the difference between an indicator default, which is the default values that are applied to the indicator when it's used as just the one indicator, and a template, which is a template of all the indicators you've got on the current chart with all their settings as applied to that current chart. So in other words, if you just change the indicator default, it will not change the settings in the indicator template. They are different. And the reason we've done that is, well, first of all, because that's the standard way that most charting packages work, but eventually we want you to be able to have different templates and be able to choose which one you want as a default. So in other words, you might want to have different settings in those, so it doesn't make any sense in allowing or forcing each different default template to use the default indicator values, because you could have two templates where you want to have different indicator values, and that's why we use them as being separate. So that's my tip, is open a chart, set the indicator settings, colors, widths of the lines, whatever you wish, as you want. In other words, get this looking just as you want, then right mouse click, templates, save as default, and then when you open a new chart, those new indicators with those values will be applied to that new chart.